Ladies, gentlemen, boys, and girls, it is lessons learned along the way. And today we have another special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a fitness guru, we have a marketing guru, we have a lifestyle guru because he does lifestyle stuff like yoga. It's all about wellness, but again, how to entangle, I like this word, how to mingle these things that this man does, because he's a renaissance man. Like, he does a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Ian Knight. Ian, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing well, Strap. Thanks for having me on, baby.
Yeah, I've been trying to like describe who you are, because I could talk about cinematographer, I could talk about fitness, wellness, the yogi that you are. I could talk about advertising strategist that you are. Explain to the listenership audience who you really are and the facets of of stream of consciousness and activity and implementations that you do, man. Just explain who you are. Like, you're a very complex individual. Explain yourself, please.
So this is how I explain to everyone. I am a fractional CMO. I am the host of BLEAV in Arizona Fit, a sports and performance coach, and a writer. So I'm additional
So
slash
cinematographer is not in that like anymore. Like, kind of
incorporated CMO.
Okay, CMO. My bad. So,
Yeah. So if you don't know what CMO is, it's a chief marketing officer.
So, Ian, could you just share with the audience and the audience your history, where you're from, your beginnings, and what led you to this position that you're in?
So I'm gonna give you guys a shortened version because that's literally like a 2 hour long story. But a lot of you may know me. I grew up in Wichita, graduated from Wichita Heights, did a brief stint over at Butler, and afterwards transferred to Washington State University, where I completed my undergrad. Played football while in college, loved every minute of it, even the hard times, which really helped me grow. While I was in college and late in high school, I got my hands on a video camera and I loved it. I just love, telling stories, getting in, messing with the graphics, editing, and really conveying the side of people that they never knew existed. So early on, after I decided football wasn't for me, or football decided I wasn't for it, I just started, picking up the camera again, going out filming, and built together, what I would consider a decent portfolio, and landed myself a few jobs in the marketing industry. One was at Textron Aviation, and after working for a few different companies over the last few years, I decided I'd rather work for myself and have a little bit more control over my life.
Absolutely, man. I like how you compounded that story, because you have so many layers, man. I'll talk about, let's break down some of those layers before we go into the sole purpose of this interview, which is showcasing the different things that you do. Let's go back to you as this, young man growing up in Wichita, Kansas, going to Heights, and then, moving to Butler. Recruited. I don't know if you were recruited by Butler or you chose Butler as a strategy to go before you go to Washington State. Did I say Washington State? Is it right?
Yeah, Washington State, baby. Go
Washington
Cougs.
State. Okay, so you, Ian, you don't give yourself too much credit, but you were one time an elite athlete. You're highly like, from, because I heard stories about your basketball days. You were a multi athlete. Like, you did track, basketball, and football. So let's talk about that a little bit, just a little bit.
Man, I growing up, I grew up on 25th and Hillside, for anybody that knows Wichita. And on that neighborhood, I mean, you did everything except baseball. I didn't do baseball. Like, throw a ball at me, 50, 60 miles an hour. Nah, you hit me, we fighting. But, but it's just running. It just became a thing I did. So, running transfers over to football, basketball, track. And so obviously when I got into high school, I wanted to do all of them, and I did them pretty well, but
Yeah.
football was just such a natural fit. But looking back, honestly, if I could do it over again, I would have focused on track straight up.
Yeah. I heard about your track stories. I heard about how pure athlete you were from people like Brian Trail, because he told me Ian was a beast. Quick. And they said you were quick, but you were never like quick, like shifty. You were big quick, like not shifty quick. You know what I mean? Like they're electrical people, like they're just small and they just quick, but you were big quick, which translated to you getting to a D1 school, which I don't know about the intangibles about football because I never played football to that level. Um, how I mean, because the reason why I'm asking you these questions is having to. I always tell people having to relearn, having having the teachable ability to relearn, because a lot of kids grow up with these sports dreams because we grow up in neighborhoods or places that the most successful people that we see are not necessarily surgeons, necessarily lawyers. I mean, some people like in Atlanta, they do see black people of our depiction in these positions. But in some places, success is usually measured through sports and entertainment. And that's why I'm emphasizing on you having these elite skills that would have taken you farther in life. And of course, you did the D1 part. Like, before we even go into the D1 part, like being this kid that had these abilities, right?
Of course.
I would love you to like revisit your mind state. Like, what were you thinking? Were you thinking of being a pro, or the tech world and the fitness world was in your foresight, I guess?
Man, honestly, man, I was just hungry as a kid. Like everyone growing up, they always downplayed me. They always kind of just pushed me aside. They never wanted to, make me an integral part of the bigger picture. So I had to kick down those doors myself and insert myself into those pictures.
Yeah.
So as a kid, honestly, all I wanted to do on every level was I wanted to be the best that I could be. And throughout that journey, that's how I ended up going D1. That mindset just never changed. It was something that, honestly, as a kid, started off boxing. A lot of people don't know about that.
Yeah.
I had to box when I was little. Like, my uncle made us do it. It was not optional.
Yeah.
You get hit in the face, when you're 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
You're gonna learn pretty quickly what type of person you are. You're gonna curl up and ball up, or you're gonna hit back. And
right.
I'm just the type to hit back, and I just hit a little harder.
Yeah. I mean, even with you saying that like draws the idea of you had a chip on your shoulder. You're a guy that always needed that chip on your shoulder to like propel and catapult yourself to another level. Would you describe yourself as a high school kid? Would you describe yourself as a jock, as a nerd, or just a guy who was just gifted but probably in band? Because Vince Carter was in band, but he was gifted as a basketball player and a football player in Florida. Like, how would you describe yourself? Would you?
Man,
were you the popular kid?
I never really fit into any box, man. Like, you can ask really good friends, Cameron Neal, Richard Dixon, that I still keep in contact with today. I was always in electronics and other stuff. The people I hung out with during school, they weren't necessarily all sports players. Like, I hung out with the drama club a little bit. There was a chess club. I didn't play chess, but I kick it with them, pick books off their brain, just kind of learn a little bit. But that was kind of like my story and tale. Like, I never fit into a box, and I never tried to fit into a box because it wasn't for me. Like, I'm just that type of person where I like to do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that, do a little bit of this. And that's when I hate the stereotype that we put on like these young black kids growing up where, it's sell or ball. Like, man, there are options out here. Take that same attitude you got and use it to do whatever you want.
Yeah. And then transitioning from high school to college, of course, you did a little bit of JUCO and then you moved over to a D1 school, right? Was there a lot of self-discovery during this process of like, because I know Butler is just like, it's just around the corner. You're next to family and friends, but now you have to go to Washington State. You have to go far west, right? How was that? How would you describe that transition? And how much growth did Ian have to face during this process?
Honestly, I describe that transition as needed. I needed it, man. I needed that growth. I didn't know how to retrain my mind at the time. Throughout those processes, man, I learned that, being self-taught, self-education, that's not something you do temporarily. That's something that has to be done over and over again. And that's the biggest thing I learned during those transitions. So, I mean, for example, moving out west to Washington State, no car, I didn't know anybody. Like, I hadn't even been on campus yet. No car, no friends, none of that. I had to really insert myself and, figure out, man, how am I going to make it a practice? How am I going to make it to the calf, which is like 1.5 miles every day? How am I going to insert myself, as a leader on the team and continue to do well in my classes? And that's another thing people didn't know about me in high school. I took AP classes, like all the way through. I graduated. Like, I didn't actually have to go to JUCO. I wanted to because I wanted better offers. But we can talk about that.
And people in sports understand your route, because sometimes these JUCOs is like more legit than some D1 schools. Like, on some real, like these JUCOs be having, and to that nuance, he's speaking in nuance. Like, he's speaking in, if you understand sports, you understand the like some of your greatest athletes did some JUCO, because some of them didn't make it to
Tyreek Hill.
They make the grades to take them to the D1 schools. They had to like build that through the JUCO so they could go through that tunnel, that pipeline, right? But some smart students that have the skill are like, you know what? I just want to test my talents. Let me go to the JUCO and see if I'm ready for the D1. It's not because of how good of a student they are. It's just they chose that channel because they know there's a lot of competition in that JUCO. And
honestly, man, Butler was the best decision I could have made. Like, the training I received under Coach Bratt and meeting everybody over there, from DeMarcus Lawrence, Zach Mettenberger, Tank, even the guys over at Hutchinson. I mean, physically, it pushed me to a level that, man, like, I wish I could go back to sometimes. Right. But going to JUCO, it's not a joke. Like, you got to be tough all the way around.
Yeah. And it's a short-lived period of time, so you have to like really embrace that short time. So now we have transitioned. You're at Washington State. You've gone through your trials and tribulations over there, and you made this decision to not pursue going into the professional arena with your talents in sports. How tough is that? Because I have friends that grew up, spend their whole life prepping themselves to be athletes, both physically and mentally, right? The way they eat, they cannot party like you party. They cannot eat the way you eat. The way they practice, the amount of rest that they get, indulging in fun activities like, women and all that other stuff. They have to hold themselves back because they're treating themselves like multimillionaires in certain situations where they don't want to be involved with. You know what I mean? They've been mentally and physically prepping themselves their whole, I think, post-puberty, I guess. They've been preparing themselves to be athletes because they've been projected to fit that criteria of a professional athlete. And then they get the sad news that, when you're in college and everything is said and done, we're done. You've been playing, this D1 basketball, D1 football for these amount of years. Well, the professional jobs are limited. And
honestly, I'll go a little bit more into detail about that. So I actually tried out for the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay.
I got traded to Oakland. This is back when Ken Norton and all those guys were in charge. And then they had a D lineman go down, and I was a bit of a hybrid transitioning into a linebacker fully. And Dallas needed help. So I went to Dallas for about 2 weeks. And this is when they had Rolando McClain and all these other animals there. And they were just like, you're probably going to end up playing the Canadian Football League. You are. And that's when I decided, like, Canadian Football League linebackers, you may make $60,000. I decided, you know what? I got brains. I can make $60,000, working at, Textron. Like, I'm good. Done.
Yeah. And I was saying that to say, like, how is that? I don't say rejection, but
no, it's rejection.
That coming into reality when finally waking up from the dream is what I want to say. Finally waking up from the dream after treating your body like a machine, treating your life, abiding to these rules, thinking that you have the ticket to save maybe your neighborhood, your family, even yourself. Some people come from affluent families that still have to go through the same process. But like, how is that for just an athlete? How is that mental switch? Some athletes never come back. They either go into drugs, alcohol. They just is because their whole life was based off structure, and they don't have that structure anymore. Some people transition seamlessly into other things with the multimedia, with the business, with the real estate. Like how is that? Tell me about that juncture of almost making it there into the professional fit. Like how is that? What's that mindset?
So before I jump into that, I want to give a shout out to Taj Gibson. If you don't know who that is, follow me on LinkedIn and I'll hook you up with him, because he specifically deals with transitioning into quote unquote normal life if you're a high level athlete. But for me, it was rough. I will say that was the roughest thing that I've probably gone through in my life, because that's how I identified myself. You know, if you walked up to people, I mean, you've heard about it, and I haven't been back there in I don't know how long. You know, Ian was a great athlete, did this, did that, yada, yada, yada. That's all I knew. So when my identity was, you know, taken away from me, I had to reinvent myself. And that's when I went back to the camera work. So for me, it was hard. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't realize it at the time, but, you know, that's when I was, you know, I was going out on the weekends, really partying, you know. I'm not going to get into details, but I wasn't focused like I was. I didn't have anywhere to put that focus. So thankfully for me, you know, I snapped myself out of it, you know, through physical fitness, through yoga, and I restructured myself to kind of, you know, build the life that I want to be. And hopefully I'm on the right track to do so. But I mean, it's tough. It's your identity. I mean, I challenge everyone. How do you identify yourself? Strap, how do you identify yourself?
Man, that's a tough question, because I switch my, like, I know my core identity values, I guess. I don't know, or components of my identity, but like I have also to have that flexibility and that dexterity to let my personality grow, because I won't be the same person the next day because of learned information or outcomes that have taught me that maybe I was taught wrong. But yeah, that's a good question. It's a tough question.
It is honestly
Tough.
like it's. I'd say I couldn't answer that question fully, maybe until like a year ago. I mean, just how you started off this show, like what? I mean, how do I identify myself? What do you do? Fractional, sports performance coach, yoga instructor, writer. I just bought part of a CBD company this week. I haven't even announced that yet. You just heard it.
Breaking news. I love it when it's done on my show. So I know it for a fact, and I experienced it to a little level. I didn't have, you know, to be great, you have some deludedness to you. You have to have that self-belief and somewhat create this reality, which is fake from reality in your mind, to get to the next level. Because if you listen to other people, they'll always tell you you're not tall enough, you're not fast enough, you're not big enough. So you have to kind of have this insular way to like cut off real reality to become great. And that's how most great people are. They're kind of deluded and they're kind of crazy. You look at, I was watching Michael Jordan's Last Dance, and I knew how deluded, and I'm not saying deluded, but how, I hate using this word, crazy, how, you know what I mean? You're a competitor. You know what I mean? Like somehow you have to like trick your mind.
I'm gonna tell you right. If you feel like you're one of those people where people are always saying this about you or whatever, let me tell you something. One, they're talking about you. They're talking about you for a reason.
Yeah.
Don't run away from that. Two, that's okay to be crazy, to be different. Yeah. That's how you make it in life. If we wanted to blend in and do what everyone else is doing, guess what? That's the type of life you're going to get out of it. Yeah. You're going to get that 9 to 5, sitting in a cubicle, taking orders from someone that hopefully you like them, going, cutting the yard, doing whatever. And I hope that's, if you're content with that, great. But I'm telling you right now, a lot of people aren't. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
You just hit the nail at the top, like right there with it. When you talked about that process of just being in automation, just you're automatic. You just wake up, brush your teeth, work, come home, do this, take care of kids. Like it's just automation. Real life is about purpose, you know, and sometimes you find purpose at a young age, and sometimes you find it when you're in your 50s, when you realize you've wasted all your youth making corporations money, but you really never developed yourself. You really never developed your spirit, your energy, and that goes back to the life lesson of success versus fulfillment. Some
Yes.
people chase full success, but they're never fulfilled. There's this story about a millionaire, and I said this before in the podcast, a millionaire that lives somewhere in the hills in California, LA, to be precise, sleeping on a $20,000 bed, and he only could get 2 hours of sleep because most of the time he's suffering with insomnia and he's suffering with ideas and ways to make his company bigger. And you think about a homeless man on Skid Row, LA, downtown LA, sleeping for 14 hours, and they feel like, you know what? I'm getting better sleep than this person sleeping on a $20,000 bed. It's just different juxtapositions of life and how we view life and how we view productivity that switches. Because sometimes we think productivity is based on volume, but productivity is really based on how you feel. It's not the amount of work that you put out
You
there.
you said it earlier, chase fulfillment. What's going to bring happiness overall in life? And that's something that, parents, teachers, they don't really push that on younger kids. They just
Absolutely.
want to get them jobs in the real world to, perpetuate this society that
Yeah.
doesn't, incorporate a healthy lifestyle, a healthy mindset. But at the overall end of the day, it just, makes people who are here to pay taxes and fight wars for someone else.
Right.
Well, that's not why we're here.
We're not
We're
here for
here
that.
to
Yeah.
do what we want to do to make this world a better place.
Yeah. And even with saying that, like, this is a good segue. And that's why I had brought up success versus fulfillment. I want to talk about some of the practices that you do. I know you're a yogi. You've been a yogi for a while. I always find
Yeah,
it weird seeing a buff yogi. I always see your Instagram. I'm like, why you so brolic and you doing yoga, bro? I mean,
hey man,
that's
no
the
plus
dumb.
size yoga,
That's my
dog.
dumb. I'm ignorant. Forgive me for that, because it's just always like I have this always. It's a skewed alignment between being muscular and not being flexible. It's skewed and
Yeah,
it's wrong. But even if in my skewed thinking, I'm kind of right most of the time. Most of the buff dudes that I meet cannot touch their back of their head. They cannot do stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so you are this fitness guy, weightlifting guy, big 6'3" guy doing yoga. Like, that didn't make sense to me. But explain for you, keep going. Just I you
let,
you know
let me
and
tell you
forgive me
guys
for
this.
I'm being dishonest.
Hey, no, tell it how it is, man. I think that's a problem we got now. We like to sugarcoat things. Like we
Yeah.
gotten to a point where we want to sugarcoat things. Don't sugarcoat it. Tell everybody how it is, man.
Yeah.
That's why I tell people who work with me. Like if my work's not good, it's not up to par. Don't sit there and say, "Oh, it's good, it's this," but no, man. Tell me what it is. But we'll circle back to that. I got into yoga when I was working at Textron because I was doing the 9 to 5, wake up, do this, do that, bored out of my mind. I needed something. I needed something, a way to challenge myself, and I felt stiff. I've always been stiff. Part of my impairment playing ball was I had the world's worst ankles because one, I didn't know how to train properly, but two, no one ever taught me the importance of stretching and how everything's connected in the body. So when I started yoga, it was rough. Like I have never been more sore in my life than when I started practicing yoga. Like my feet were hurting. Like my feet were hurting, dog. So after I did it for about 2 months, I started seeing improvements. I started feeling a little bit better, and then I just kept going, kept going. Weight started coming off me, like bad weight. And eventually I got to a point where I was like, I want to teach this. And shout out to Wichita Ashtanga Yoga. I love the way that they teach yoga over there. And that's how I transitioned the physical practice to here. Because in yoga, if you're not doing everything throughout the breath work and focusing, your mind's clouded, you won't improve. And overall, you're just going to cause yourself more pain. So, I mean, yoga was a really big jumping off point for me. And a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. I definitely I was monitoring because we follow each other and we were friends, and I was noticing a change in, like, you had like this switch once the yoga started coming in. It was like everything started to align. Like from the yoga that you were doing, I could definitely see you being the PT that you are, personal trainer. Um, Having people doing like hills. I'm seeing you doing these outdoor workouts, and then um, partaking in different challenges in your life. Of course, not saying it's a big lifestyle change, but I remember, yeah, we used to be my drinking friend at one time, and then I don't think you do that anymore. I don't think
No,
even you partake in that type of lifestyle. I don't want to put that out there. Forgive me, but
hey, no, put
yeah,
it up.
we used to
No,
hang out. We used to
there-
have fun.
there's no secrets about my life. If y'all know me,
Yeah,
you know everything. There's
yeah.
no secrets over
And
here. Like,
and that yoga just triggered something. You just stopped everything. You just became distant with saying people. Stay just
they,
focusing on your your mental real estate, and
yeah. When
you
you
can see the
start
result.
stop trying to compare yourself to everything else, and you do the work that really matters, everything falls into place. There's a reason why you and I are still in contact.
Yeah,
Our paths are aligned. There's a
yeah,
reason. Brent Trell and I, we talk music all the time, even though he's in Kansas City.
yeah,
Our paths are aligned on that way.
yeah.
Troy over there at Bob Wichita.
Shout out to Vibe Wichita. Shout out to Burns Trail. Yeah. Shout out
Yeah,
to
I mean, it's just the people who are supposed to be in your life, they will be there. That's why I'm always telling everybody, don't compare yourself to anyone else or anything else. And
yeah.
I think that's how we're using social media wrong.
Yeah.
Do it to show the world who you are, what you're about, what do you want to do? I mean, what's the
Yeah.
value that you bring to the table to anyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of your growth, man. It's so inspiring. It's so motivating, especially for somebody like me, a new parent. And sometimes when you step into a different realm of having not to be, because I'll let you, my listeners know this. Maybe I already said this. Before having a child, I was very selfish. I mean, everything I woke up was about self, not in a bad way of being selfish, but if I didn't fulfill my happiness, I'm moving on. Forget my girls. I forget how she feels. It was always like, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? And that had to change because I got into a situation or a crossroad where I had to look at like, yo, this lady gave me the most beautiful gift in my life. She gave me my daughter, right? And then my daughter. And then I had to realize, why am I selfish? And I realized, because you grew up in the household with this amount of kids, and if you didn't take care of yourself, somebody's going to take advantage of you. Then you start peeling layers of your upbringing of why you're selfish, and it's not a good thing. I mean, it's protective. It helps you go through life. Always worried about self makes you selfish in every agenda. If you're not benefiting from it, then why do I involve myself, which is very good for being a capitalist because you'll be successful, but in the bigger scheme of things, you're not bringing anybody up. Because I feel our main job, like what you do in life, is you apply service. You help people get better. You empower people. I thought about myself, who did I empower? I've not empowered anybody. And that's why I say this lessons learned along the way, to empower people, to apply service in this, even if I do it with my 9 to 5, but I'm doing it with my 9 to 5 because I'm incentivized with that check that comes with it. But I want to do it basing it off, I'm not getting anything from this besides sharing knowledge with subject matter experts such as you, Ian. And I realized I broke that self-centric idea of self because I realized I have a daughter and it's not about me anymore. I have this person that, it's not about me. And I should have been like that. And some people get it at a younger age. Unfortunately, I had to get it like at 32 or 31.
Let me inject something there for you, though. Being selfish is going to sound crazy. Being selfish isn't a bad thing. Because I'll tell you
It's
this.
not bad, yeah.
Especially when you're growing up before the family comes. You need to figure out who you are. Like, I mean, it's a tough road. Like you said earlier, you might do this when you're 50, but you need to figure out who you are and what makes you happy. Because some people, they'll disagree with me on that, and that's fine. But you don't get into relationships because you know, like this person, they make me happy. Without them, I'll die. That's codependency. Like we don't do that. I don't encourage that. All right, you're happy. You meet another happy person. Together, you're both happy and you help each other grow. That's beautiful. That's what we need more of. You know, trust me, being selfish is not a bad thing. But now here's where I'm going to challenge it. There's a line. When you start to discover yourself, when you figure out what you're good at, what makes people become drawn to you, share that. That's when you want to start connecting with people. Like for me, I'll use me for instance. When it comes to the human body, when it comes to, you know, hey, how do I get better physically? How do I, you know, stop being in back pain? How do I fix my back pain, my foot, this? I can help you out with that all day. And I have no problem doing it. A lot of people, they ask me questions a ton of times a day. I'll always answer them. That's how I give back to the world. That's what people need to do with that time when they're being selfish. What are you good at? What can you do to empower other people?
Yeah. I mean, that's well said, man. Like you're absolutely right. We as human beings, we have been conditioned to create necessity, create urgency for something that we need. And unfortunately, it is just our primal nature, but that kind of like leads us to be selfish because we're trying to survive.
Have you ever heard of the, it's not really a theory. I'm going back to my grad school days. Have you ever heard of the concept survival versus thrival?
I've not studied it, but I've heard of it. I've maybe heard of it in passing, but I've not really dove into that idea.
So growing up, it was single parent home. You know, I had great grandparents, all that stuff. You know, there were times when the lights weren't on, no joke, but I didn't have the hardest of lives. Definitely wasn't. But we were in survival mode. Everything we did was, you know, to make it to the next day. You know, take my girlfriend, love her to death, completely different side of the tracks. You know, private schooling, had a lot of help along the way. She was put in a position to thrive, where I was put in a position to survive. And it's a race thing that comes into play. And we can talk about it later if you want, when we talk about thematic things that have been put in place to keep us where we're quote unquote supposed to be. We need to come out of a mindset of survival and start thinking of thrival. And I love the fact that there are a lot of families of color out there who are making that transition.
Absolutely.
Because what you talked about earlier, those defense mechanisms, those things that you do to survive. Yeah. And when you're growing up like that, you didn't have a choice. Like, it's survival. Yeah.
Man, that's well said. Moving or segueing from that, let's talk about that logo behind you right there. The audience, I would say audience, that's audio. The viewership can see it. It's a tree and it has your name at the bottom of it. Let's talk about the significance and the symbolism that we have in front of us, like with that tree and everything that is.
So first and foremost, shout out to my business partner, Elise Bunting over at Videon Group. Her title is director, but she's the chief operating officer over there. She's the one who did this work. I love her for it. It's beautiful. I look forward to doing more business with you in the future. But yeah, it's a Joshua tree. So the Joshua tree, it's a tree. It doesn't look pretty. It's like half cactus, half tree. It like hangs at these funky angles. It's not something you want in your yard, but that tree survives in some of the worst climates ever. It does very well in these desert harsh conditions that I live in right now, and it's tough. It doesn't matter whatever happens to it, it will adapt and will grow. And it was just the perfect symbol for me, because I won't get into all the details of my life, but throughout all the hardships, I took 5 minutes, I pouted about it, why me, whatever's, and then I changed my mindset. How do I grow from this? How do I move on? How do I create a future that's not only better for me, but my future kids, so that they can have a better life? And that's what I love about that Joshua tree. It represents resiliency. You know, what are you going to do when tough times hit? Are you going to, excuse my language, you're going to fold up like a bitch? Are you going to stand up and push forward?
Man, I like the story behind the symbolism and what it stands for. Moving from the symbol of your business and your pretty much your story and how the story that comes about the symbol of the Joshua tree could be pretty much your mission statement. You know what I mean? And what drives you to do what you do in the different facets of business and industry that you do. In the introduction, we talked about you being, you said a CMO. Did I say it
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I'm a fractional CMO.
Fractional CMO. We also talked about you being a coach for wellness, a wellness coach. Um, and also we talked about your fitness enthusiast, enthusiastic background. Um, I mean, I could see the thread that ties everything together when you mentioned your mission statement based on the symbolism of your logo. But to the listener that would not understand the nuance, that would not understand the different breakdowns, let's talk about. Okay, let me speak in just simple language because I'm going into. Why do you do all these different things, and how do you have energy to do all these different things? This is me just speaking off a layman's diction.
I hope you guys like politics. I'm here to make America healthy for
Yeah,
once.
there you go. I mean, that's what America needs. You know, like that's what the world needs actually, because we live in a world that you know we don't have. I mean, hmm.
Like, I'll tell the story
Okay,
for you.
I'll let you speak while I build on this idea.
Think about this, and this is going to seem a little big, but that's all right. From a young age, we put these kids in classrooms, force them to sit down 8 hours a day. That's unnatural, very stiff in the body, lack attention because we're teaching them things that half of them they'll never use in their life anyway. Just to get them ready to go to college, to pay thousands of dollars to get a job in a cubicle where they have to pay back thousands of dollars, causing stress on their mind, causing stress physically because they're not moving around like they're supposed to, because we taught them that, physical activity isn't really that important, just so they can go out there and make money for someone else so they can, earn whatever it is, 100 or 1,000, $2,000 a week to start their own family so that they can bring up more kids in the same system to go through the same cycle to make someone else more money or for someone else to live their own dreams. Why? When are you going to live your dream? When are you going to do what you want to do? When you retire at 75? Really?
I mean, I feel like even with that being said, I feel like a lot of us. I'm not far away from that description of I'm that kid that you're talking about that had to use education as my escape board, as my my only grab on to livelihood, because I'm not the tallest. So I don't know how to dunk. I don't have a good J. Yeah, I don't run a 4.240. I mean, the list goes on. I'm not very convincing as a lawyer. Like I don't meet the criteria of having a job based on indoctrination that will pay me money that is worth generational uh, pass down or generational wealth. So right now, I I got indoctrinated as an educator, as a person in the education field, as a person in the field of building courses. And I understand, like, yes, I'm in that field of building courses, but it does come with monotony. It does come with stress. It does come with its own different invisible ceilings where you will not go higher than a certain level, and you just stuck and content in mediocrity in its own sense. But again, yes, I do consider myself, and I'm using myself as an example, by the way, so don't feel bad about it. But yes, I view myself, and I don't feel sorry for myself because I'm able to take care of my necessities, but still there's that desire of that kid in you, because that child inside you, right? That is a dreamer. And the worst thing you could do, because even when I turn 50, everyone has that child in them. And once you suppress that child in you, you'll never be successful. Because the child in you makes you successful. The child in you makes you creative. The child in you makes you not content. The child in you makes you want to explore. The child in you makes you not want to settle. The grown up.
That fulfillment.
We can't get back to the okay. Huh. Yeah.
That child, who's happier than a child?
Not, I won't lie to you, I was the happiest when I was a kid. I mean, I'm still happy. Yeah, I was happiest when I was a kid. Even when we didn't have a lot, I was happy. I was genuinely happy.
And here's the argument that people always throw at me. They didn't have responsibilities. We didn't have bills. You know what? A lot of that stuff we make up on our own.
Huh.
Like here's the thing. They say, I have to do this. I have to do that. If you sit down and think, you have to. Someone put a gun to your head and made you sit in a cubicle for 9 hours that hurts your back, that causes you pain, that causes you stress. Someone put a gun to your head and made you do it?
No.
No one made me. No. If you look at all the people who are successful from a financial standpoint, they don't do that. Yeah. They do what they want to do, what they're passionate about.
A lot of them still have that child in them too. Like they have to be creative, think about stuff outside the board, like outside the box. Like imagine you living in the 1960s and somebody told you about the idea of an email. Something that gets to you within a second, and it could be in New Zealand, which is like
that's crazy.
In the 1960s, they're like, "Oh, go away, Jesus! This is witchcraft. Like, this is some wizardry." That's crazy. That's crazy.
You should get a job pushing paper.
Right, but there was somebody who was still childlike who was like, "Yo, I'm gonna make this thing happen. I'm gonna make the internet happen." There's somebody that is childlike to push boundaries from the norm, from you being in this automated, wake up, do this, do that, freaking scheduled life of doing things because you're uncomfortable with change. You're uncomfortable with challenging what's happening in front of you.
Right.
And that person that does that is the person that will freaking get stones thrown at them in the beginning, but later on everybody will be like, "Oh, but whatever John was saying is actually it's progressive and different, and maybe we can do that."
Let me tell you guys. let me tell you guys, and don't turn me off when I say this. Don't turn me off.
No, I'm not gonna turn you off.
Let me tell you about my man Jesus. Jesus, I'm gonna hang out with the people who are sick. I'm gonna hang out with the people who are poor. My Father is God. You're crazy, Jesus. You're insane. You keep talking like that, they're gonna kill you.
Yeah.
I'll come back in 3 days. Obviously, you're not Jesus. You're not gonna come back in 3 days. Right. But what the point I'm making here is, whoever did something great in life, whoever fulfilled their destiny in life, they had to go through those hard times.
Yeah, challenge the situation happening at the moment. Yeah, definitely.
You got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And here's one thing I want to say. If you wake up every day in a traditional 9 to 5 and you are happy, like you really love yourself, you are in the right spot. But I do not know very many people like that. Yeah. Not at all. That's when it goes back to your health, because a lot of those people too, they're hurting physically, which leads to them hurting mentally, which hurts their spirit in the long run. And that's how you have people who are sitting there at the bars at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday feeling regret. Why?
Right. Yeah. I mean, gosh.
Why?
It goes. Can I psychoanalyze it? Let me apply clinical psychology.
Get her out here if you want.
I would say we are raised from kids without real life expectations. We treat our kids to think about outside with daughters, think about princes, Prince Charming, horses, and unrealistic things that even me as a child, I thought I was going to be a professional athlete. And once those unrealistic things don't come to fruition or don't happen, then our plan B is more like a defeatist approach to life. And we don't even take ownership in our plan B because of the idea and the semantics and even just the verbiage of using the word plan B, because it was not really your plan. You are not dreaming this. You are not dreaming to be a freaking this person, but now you're that person. So how do you take ownership in that? How do you take ownership waking up to do stuff that you want to, like, to go and do stuff with integrity? You doing it because it comes with an incentive of a bill, or a paycheck, which is your livelihood, but you're not taking ownership because your whole life till you were like 16, you would try to be like a track athlete. You were trying to be whatever. It's that thing. So maybe applying realistic ideologies to these babies, letting them know we are going to make you what do you want to be in future. And it's hard to do that. You cannot super and forcefully impose realistic ideas on kids because that's unfair to the kid. Let the kid be the kid. Let the kid dream. If he wants to be an astronaut, if she wants to be but there's some importance for letting them know like, yo, but guess what? Which makes me a dream killer, which is horrible. And my folks would they grew up from a different generation, were kind of like that. They were like, yo, all your dreams are gonna be in education. Education is the key. Not vocational school, education. You have to get a 4-year degree, get that student loan, no problem. But that's where
and I'm gonna inject myself here, man. Our parents, our past generations, they taught us what they knew.
Yeah.
We can't, they're only telling us what they knew. If my parents, I would have told my mom 10 years ago that I was going to buy a CBD, I was going to buy a portion of a CBD company and sell from company to company.
Lord Jesus.
based on a laptop, she would have looked at me like, she would have been like, Negro, please. But that's all she knew. But now when she can see the results, she's like, yeah, he was thinking ahead of our time. And and I'm going back to survival versus thrival. And that's what I like to see us colored people. We're starting to teach our kids getting out of that survival mindset to thrival. That's part of the journey. Like, hey, life's tough, whatever. I'm going to tell you what I know, but I'm also going to tell them, think about the future. What is your future going to look like? How can you best be prepared for that future? It's tough. I get it.
Man, Ian, this is a great conversation. Before even, I don't want to shadow our conversation based on these topics that we're talking about. I just want to focus back on you. I'm pulling that from the topic because this is a good topic. We will get back to this, but let's talk about you. Let's talk about you. I mean, you stand for those are some of the things that you. I mean, everything is tied together. There's a thread. There's a bridge within everything that we're saying. But I love that you have taken the time out in your life to become this wellness coach. How do you first of all, how do you attain the title of a wellness coach? Like what process do you have to go through to be that?
So I am not officially a wellness coach. There are plenty of programs that you can go through out there to become a wellness coach. I am a sports performance specialist, a fitness nutrition specialist, yoga instructor. There's one more out there, Reiki instructor as well. I have a lot of certifications in the physical fitness field. Yeah. But I tied it all together through yoga. When you practice yoga, I don't mean just go through the asana, the postures and all that. When you practice, when you breathe, you learn to concentrate and then meditate, a lot of things come to light. A lot of things that you weren't thinking about before that you should have been thinking about, boom, they're there. The veils that we call them, the distractions in life, they start to go away. You got to have the freshest and flyest car. No, I don't. Boom. You got to come to work for me for 8 hours a day. No, I don't. You got to do this. No, I don't. You got to get married by the age of 30 and have 40 kids. No, I don't. No, I don't. Yeah. You start to see your path, and everyone's path is different. That all came from yoga. So the holistic approach that I take to life, that's where it came from.
Wow, that's amazing. And then transitioning from that to your enthusiasm and your knowledge and participation and implementation in marketing. Like, I know maybe that's more indoctrination. Maybe you went to college and got a degree in that, but I understand that comes with certain certificates, right? Like, what do you think, especially now I don't say post because we're still in COVID-19, but the COVID-19 time, like, what is marketing right now?
Marketing, right? The field of marketing has taken a huge hit because honestly, when you think of the traditional workforce, marketers are some of the first people to go. It's just because they're part of sales support. In most cases, successful companies realize that marketing actually is their sales team. They've held on to them. But companies, and I'm going to throw some companies on the bus, under the bus, and I don't apologize about it. Spirit, Boeing, Textron, American Airlines. Fuck you guys, I don't give a fuck. They have gotten rid of their marketing teams because they don't see them as valuable. But truthfully, the ones who are succeeding, who are making money, they realize that people want to have more control over their decisions. They don't want to be sold to. They don't want someone knocking on their door, sending them an email saying, buy my shit. They want information to make an educated decision. And then they want to say, okay, I'm interested. Tell me more about what you have. So the field, I mean, post-COVID, marketing is taking a huge hit, but the ones who are doing it well, they're not marketing to this idea of people. They're marketing to real people.
Right. Man, I have this infatuation. Is this the right word? But this gravitas, this pull to marketing, because I've been reading books about neuro-linguistic programming, where you have to use the right words to convince the brain on whether to do something that you'd want to do. So neuro-linguistic programming. Yep. And marketing is it's based on all of that, choosing the right colors. So, you have to know about culture sensitivity with your colors and structuring. And it's a science, man. Like it's genius.
It's a little science that you can get a degree in.
Absolutely. So Ian, we get into the later stages of this episode. We're going to ask you, we usually ask our guests, what's the last book that you read? I saw you moving a book up and down. What's that book that you holding over there? So, I mean, maybe that's not the last book that you read, but like you could promote it if you have a book or anything that you want to do.
So my book probably won't be done for another year or so, but this one right here, Knowing Yourself, Grow Your Business, Unlearning Leadership by Guy Bell. This is my mentor. It really is. Let me put in perspective to you. The amount of time he has spent to help groom me to talk to these CEOs and to get me the meetings with these people who make tens of thousands of dollars working 10 hours a week. No joke. It has truly changed my life. And I encourage everyone to read this book because this is kind of where it all started for me. But the last book that I read, it was The Slash Career. And I'll send everyone, I'll put a link in it for you guys in the show notes. You can get it for $5 off Kindle right now.
Absolutely. Thank you.
If you noticed about me, I have a lot of slashes. I'm a fractional CMO, sports performance coach. The list goes on. I don't attain to a normal 9-to-5. I do what I want based on my interests. And that book is really helping me tie it all together.
That's amazing. Now that we at the last portion or the last part of the show, we usually ask the guest, what's the ultimate lesson that you've learned along the way?
Honestly, the ultimate lesson that I've learned in life is you got to be who you are. And you've probably heard it a million times, but until you really start digging deep and to figure out who you are, it's hard. It's tough. And a lot of people, your family members, aren't going to like it. At the end of the day, though, are you living your life for someone else or are you living your life for yourself?
Right.
Because for a while, I was living my life for someone else. I don't even know who I was living for. I don't know who that guy was.
Right.
But I'm living it for myself now, and I love it. I'm not even making the money I want to make right now, but I love waking up every day. I don't get out of bed, drag my feet, feel like, oh, what's going on? I won't do that again, ever.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah, man. Ian, you've been an awesome guest. Great conversation. People out there, follow him. Ian, share your socials and where they can get at you, please.
So for anything physical training wise, Coach I Knight, very easy to find. For your marketing needs, you can find me at Ian R Knight. Very simple. Though I have websites at both of those titles as well. Put them all in the show links. One thing I also did want to mention, so I do have one spot open for any company that's based in health and wellness who needs help marketing. If you have at least $1,000 to spend on ad spend, not going to charge you my fee. Go ahead and reach out to me. It's a first come, first served basis. And with that said, Stratton, baby, thanks for having me on. I love getting
man. Absolutely, man.
Yeah, if you're going to be hanging around in the Wichita area, we're working out the details, but I will be speaking at Wichita State this upcoming week. It may be Zoom. If it's Zoom, I'll put the link out there as well for any entrepreneurs. With that said, thank you for having me on, baby.
Hey, I appreciated everything that you just did and you shared with our listenership. It's lessons learned along the way, and we did exactly that. Ian, thank you. And viewership, listenership, people watching on YouTube, hit that like, that subscribe. Let's grow this movement. Let's make the machine strong. You already know the rest. And we are out. Peace.